Welcome back to the channel. Aaron here from the Bitcoin Bros, and we're going to be getting into some news here today for Bitcoin, for strategy. Kind of quiet here today, Tuesday afternoon, not too much going on, but still going to keep you guys up to date with what's been going on here in the market. Obviously, we had strategy come out on Monday. They bought 850 Bitcoin. They're almost to 640,000 BTC. That is good to see, and most of this was bought from MSTR ATM, and you can see the price right now is currently at 335. MNAV's been sitting around 1.5, hasn't really moved too much. And if you look at the most actively traded US stocks here today, strategy actually falling down the list quite a bit here. Still around the top 25 at the time of today's recording, but the volume has slowed down a bit here for strategy stock. That doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, but right now there is less volume on strategy stock. And if we see where strategy is right now in the top US market cap companies, we're sitting at 111, down 6 spots today. So it has been very volatile on this list, going up and down. But I think if we have a good Q4, strategy is going to get back in the top 100 and start to climb the ranks again, potentially. That's something to watch out for. And then we have some updates here. The U.S. New Jersey State Police and Firemen's Retirement Fund increased their position in strategy by around $1.4 million. They now hold around 38,000 shares, valued at around $13 million. So we're seeing retirement funds invest in strategy, and they're accumulating more strategy shares because they think that strategy is going to be worth more in the future. And if you look at this right here, right now, looking at the technicals over the past couple of years, every time strategy has come down and hit the 50 EMA, we've gotten a bounce and a rally to the upside. Almost every single time over the past 2 years, when strategy comes down and hits this line, it bounces. And this will align very well with what we see with the MSTR seasonality. Seasonality going into October, November is good for Bitcoin, but it's also very good for strategy as well. So as we see strategy coming down here, hitting around the 50 EMA, if we get a bounce and move to the upside, that would coincide with the Q4 move that we're potentially going to see from Bitcoin and the seasonality for MSTR stock. And then you can see here the mtplf MNAV is around 1.38. They just bought a massive amount of Bitcoin, and they have more big buying coming soon. And strategy's still been sitting around 1.5 for their MNAV. And this could be a low in MNAVs. We're seeing the MNAVs compress before we see another hype cycle where the MNAVs start to go back up. Now, this is not financial advice. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Nobody has a crystal ball. But if you look at historical data, you look at the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and you look at what strategy Bitcoin normally does in Q4, especially after a halving year, it's looking like we could potentially have a move to the upside for MNAV and for Bitcoin price. So with those two things going up, that's going to be extremely good for strategy, for mtplf, and some of these other Bitcoin Treasury companies. And then I just wanted to put something in perspective here. This is Nvidia stock. It surges to a record high of $184. They announced a $100 billion investment in OpenAI. They added $200 billion of the market cap just over the last hour. So Nvidia moved $200 billion up, which is only a 4% move for them. That is two strategies in just that 4% move for Nvidia. So this goes to show you, with all these massive tech companies that have trillion-dollar valuations, there's a lot of money to go around. And if this money starts to flow into BTC, Bitcoin's price is definitely going to go up. And when you price these top 10 assets, if you look at the top market cap companies in the US and you start to price those in Bitcoin, you start to see how things really don't even make sense. Because right now, Nvidia is around a $4.4 trillion market cap company. And if you take the top 10, you're probably going to have more than a $10 trillion in market caps combined cumulative for all those companies. Now, if you try to put $10 trillion on top of Bitcoin, you start to see how early you are for Bitcoin, because if you take around $10 trillion at current prices and you buy Bitcoin at 115, 120, you're going to get around 86 million Bitcoin. Now, you know there's not 86 million Bitcoin to go around. So it just shows you how early we are potentially for BTC. Then we have some other big news. If you guys didn't see this, Semler Scientific was bought out by Strive. They acquired Semler, and now Strive actually holds more than 10,000 BTC. And this is the first time we've seen a Bitcoin treasury company get bought by a rival. So it's going to be really interesting to see going forward if we see strategy potentially buy some of these smaller Bitcoin treasury companies or metaplanet. That is something that we have to watch out for and pay attention to, because we know this game is going to continue to change as the years go on. And these Bitcoin treasury companies are going to get more creative in the way that they're able to acquire more BTC. So that's something to watch out for, but pretty interesting from Strive. Then we have the Smarter Web company. They bought another 55 Bitcoin. They now hold around 2,525 BTC. Their quarter to date BTC yield is 278%, and their year to date is 57,000%. So they've bought Bitcoin at a pretty fast pace there, and they're continuing to stack. So that is definitely good to see from Smarter Web company. And then we have Capital B here. They announced they're going to be raising $1.2 million to buy more Bitcoin. And that will get them to around 2,810 BTC. So that is pretty good to see. And then we had a potential big announcement from Dennis Porter over this past weekend. He was really hyping this announcement on Tuesday. And, you know, Dennis has had some really good announcements in the past. And this is a pretty interesting announcement, but I think it might have been overhyped. Some people were very disappointed about this on Twitter, but that is okay. Dennis has definitely showed up in the past. He's been one of the reasons why the U.S., or some of these states in the U.S. have actually put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So, but yeah, some people were upset at him about this. But as you can see right here, extremely pro-Bitcoin candidate officially declares candidacy for governor of California, declares support for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And this is big news. If, you know, this guy wins here, Ian Calderon, that would be huge, because we haven't really seen a lot of Democratic support for Bitcoin, especially at the state level. We haven't seen it at the federal level. So this would be really huge if we get California, which is going to be the biggest blue state, to have support for Bitcoin. So I understand what he's saying. This is more of a long-term thing that could, if it plays out and he's elected to be the governor, this would be huge for Bitcoin. And if California happens to ever buy Bitcoin, it probably would, because Ian Calderon became the governor of California. So this is pretty big, in my opinion, just more of a long-term view, not anything that is going to change anything in the short term. And then to give you guys an update on the Bitcoin ETF flows, last week we had a pretty good week of inflows, pretty big outflow on Monday here, around $363 million. And it's, you know, it's like clockwork, guys. When Bitcoin's price goes down, we're going to see outflows in the ETFs. And when we're seeing inflows, Bitcoin's price is probably going to go out. That's been a very consistent theme that we have noticed since the Bitcoin ETFs have launched. And what's really funny is I saw Peter Schiff talking about people are selling the Bitcoin ETF to go into the gold ETF. This guy is kind of delusional. I mean, this is not selling. This is a lot of buying pressure. We have one day of outflow here. This is billions of dollars coming into the Bitcoin ETF. But we can see we did have a little bit of an outflow here. And that does happen from time to time. But as these ETFs have been out, they have accumulated more Bitcoin over time. So that's really all I had for today's video. Not a lot going on in the news here today. Appreciate you watching all the way to the end of the video. My name is Aaron from the Bitcoin Bros. I'm out. I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a great rest of your day.